And welcome to the Township of Mapleton Council meeting for Tuesday, January 27, 2026, our second one of the month. I'll call this meeting to order. I just want to thank everyone in the audience here for being here. I know they've all come to see this wonderful council and maybe a couple of the delegations, possibly. But certainly glad to have you all here. At this time, if you're able, please stand and we'll have O Canada. Any declaration of pecuniary interest? Seeing none, we'll do the confirmation of minutes. Resolution 4.1, moved by Councillor Reid, second by Councillor Martin, that the minutes of the Township of Mapleton Council meeting held on January 13, 2026 be confirmed as circulated in the agenda. Any comments? All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Now, we do have some service award presentations. We have three of our staff members, Michelle McCabe and Glynis Bellick, both with 5 years, and Debbie Dyson with 15 years. I'll just let Mr. Barron have a few words.
Thanks, through your worship. As you probably can tell, we try to attract the best staff that we possibly can, and judging by the room here, I think we're extremely successful. We got 2 5 years into 15. I think that goes a long way, to what council does, and when they set policy, does it allow us to attract the best talent? Does it allow us to become the employer choice? And as you can see, our amazing staff are here, and we're going to celebrate them, but in fact, yes, it does, and we are able to go attract what I consider by far the best staff in all of Ontario, if not Canada. So when we say we appreciate the folks that we have, and we like to celebrate them, we truly mean it. Once in a while, Glynis, you're too busy, I never get to see you. And then with Debbie, honest to God, she's always working, whether it's, from 6 in the morning till 8, 9 o'clock at night, one of the hardest workers in Mapleton, and I'm serious when I say that. And Michelle, of course, with her expertise and planning, help us a great deal. So I just want to say a huge congratulations, but honestly, we're the lucky ones to have you three, and everybody else is receiving an award, and the rest of the staff, so we're fortunate, and we're extremely excited to celebrate your service awards, so thank you.
So we're going to do this one by one, but then we're going to get a group shot as well. So the first award we have is the 5-year award for Michelle McCabe. Michelle? And next we'll have Glynis. Bella, Glynis. And lastly, we have Debbie. Debbie for 15 years. Debbie, come on up. It's always an honor to be part of the presentations of awards to staff members for their long service. And as council, we do appreciate long service of staff members. It gives us stability for the township and everything that we do. And it's super easy for us to do work when we have a stability of staff. And we just thank, all of our staff for everything they do each and every day. They make us look good as council. And it makes our job a little bit easier when we have great staff. So thank you all three for your longevity. We'll move on to the next item on the agenda here, which is delegations and rising from delegations. So the first delegation we have is MPAC, I believe, Mr. Clerk.
It's true, and we have two of them zooming in.
Okay, we have two people zooming in. We have Ann Haynes and Kelly Button. And John Young is here. John, welcome, John.
There you go. Yeah, I got it. So, Ann Haynes is our regional manager for MPAC, Municipal and Stakeholder Relations for Southwestern Ontario. And she wanted to be here to address council, but is not feeling well, so she zoomed in, and I think she has a few words to say.
Yeah. Thanks, John. I just want to introduce myself. I'm just back from Roma, so I know I might have seen some of you at Roma. I just wanted to introduce my team. Myself, I'm the regional manager in Southwestern Ontario, as John mentioned. John Young is your dedicated account manager, and Kelly Button is the account support coordinator who supports John and myself. So I just want to thank you for having us here tonight to make the delegation, and sorry I couldn't be there in person, but I will hand it back to John. Thank you.
Okay, again, my name is John Young, and I'm your account manager, and I'm here to give a brief overview of Ontario's property assessment and taxation system with a focus on the Farmland Tax Incentive Program. Next slide. There are four key players in Ontario's property assessment and taxation system, and all have a different role and interest in this process. The provincial government, specifically the Ministry of Finance, is responsible for setting assessment and taxation legislation as well as policies. The province also sets out the education property tax rate. There's also an independent body that adjudicates appeals of MPAC's assessed values, the Assessment Review Board. This falls under the jurisdiction of the province. MPAC is an independent, not-for-profit corporation funded by all Ontario municipalities. Our role is to accurately assess and classify all properties in Ontario. We do this in compliance with the Assessment Act and regulations set by the Government of Ontario. We are accountable to the province, municipalities, and property taxpayers of Ontario through a board of directors that is comprised of provincial, municipal, and taxpayer representatives appointed by the Minister of Finance. Municipalities determine their budget requirements, set tax rates, and collect property taxes to pay for municipal services. You use our assessments and the established tax rates to distribute your tax requirement to ratepayers. And finally, the property owners pay the property tax bill and help set market value through ongoing purchases and sales of real property. Next slide. Our work with municipalities is very important. Every municipality has dedicated support through MPAC's municipal and stakeholder relations team. Your primary contacts are your local account manager and account support coordinator, who can offer training, answer your questions, and meet to provide key business updates relating to your assessment base. Your municipality will also receive assistance from MPAC's valuation team and valuation and data services, including our land parcel unit. With your needs in mind, we have focused on improving our information sharing with municipalities to support planning, public policy, and provide better access to property data. We sought input from our stakeholders at several municipal engagements so that we could learn more about the concerns from municipalities and property owners. MPAC's work intersects with a broad range of organizations and partners. We work closely with and support municipal associations at the provincial and local chapters, including the Associations of Municipalities of Ontario, Municipal Finance Officers Association, and the Association of Municipal Managers, Clerks, and Treasurers of Ontario, known as AMCTO. We also work with several regional and municipal associations and groups, including industry and special interest groups. You'll see us at municipal conferences and events where we typically have booth displays and where we can connect one-on-one and present to conference delegates. We have government partners such as Ontario's Ministry of Finance, Elections Ontario, the Assessment Review Board, and certain federal departments such as Elections Canada. Next slide. Let's spend a moment to address the relationship between property taxes and assessment. Assessments distribute taxes. They do not determine the taxes paid. When a province-wide assessment update occurs, the most important factor is not how much the assessed value of a property has changed, but rather how the assessed value has changed relative to the average change in that class in that community. Taxes for an individual are straightforward. The property's assessed value provided by MPAC times the tax rate equals the taxes they pay. Next slide. I was asked to speak to you this evening about the changes that were implemented to improve the property owner and municipal experience in the Farmland Incentive Program. The Farmland Incentive Program helps support agriculture by providing eligible farm property owners with a reduction in their property tax bill. The authority for the program comes from the Assessment Act and is the responsibility of the province. Next. So, MPAC assesses properties to establish the property value and determines if the property or portions of it qualify to be classified as farmland. MPAC reports farm properties and ownership to Agricor. Agricor determines eligibility for inclusion in the Farm Property Tax Incentive Program through an application process. Agricor reports eligible properties and changes in eligibility to MPAC. Municipalities apply the reduced property tax rate and send the property tax bill to the farm owner. MPAC notifies property owners and municipalities of changes to the property tax class. Now, MPAC has until the end of October each year to make changes to properties for the upcoming tax year. Farm owners have till the end of December to apply for inclusion in the Farm Property Incentive Program for the coming tax year. This difference in submission dates for applications to Agricor compared to MPAC's legislated roll return date was resulting in approvals for these programs being received after MPAC's year-end processes. And therefore, tax incentive approval letters were issued to property owners and municipalities. Next slide. The MPAC process changed in 2023. Year-end approvals for the 2024 tax year were processed as usual. However, removals from the program were paused until May of 2024. The assessment roll continued to reflect the participation of ineligible properties in the program until June of 2024, when supplementary assessment notices were issued to remove these properties from the program. The new approach effectively addresses the concerns regarding the stability of the assessment roll. This method helps prevent overstating assessment growth due to administrative timing. And next slide. The process change continued for 2025 based on the success of the 2024 implementation. There's been a notable reduction in processing changes for both MPAC and the Township of Mapleton. This includes updating properties, creating notices, as well as municipal adjustments and billing. Municipalities across the province were pleased to see less properties moving out and then back into the program, making their budget process much easier. Next. I'm also excited to touch on a new Insights campaign that we launched at the end of February. You may have already seen some social media posts. The campaign focuses on how the residential property landscape has evolved in the last decade, specifically the housing inventory. What we've learned is that year-over-year price increases are driving buyers to look at communities farther outside the GTHA. Communities with homes under $500,000 are becoming increasingly scarce, and the type and location of homes with a value of less than $750,000 has also shifted. This means there are limited options for first-time buyers. In 2013, 74% of residential properties in Ontario had a home value estimate of less than $500,000, while 91% of homes had a value of less than $750,000. Today, that number has dropped to just 19% below $500,000 and 48% below $700,000. The current home prices are a reflection of various economic forces at play. Factors like supply and demand, increased construction and labor costs, plus inflation are all part of what's driving today's home prices. We hope that data like this will help property owners understand the changing real estate landscape and where they can look to find housing opportunities throughout Ontario that may best suit their future needs. You can learn more by visiting mpac.ca. There you'll find a link to the interactive housing inventory map where you can learn more about your area. Next slide. Our website is an excellent source of information for municipalities, elected representatives, and the public. mpac.ca contains municipal sector resources, including a monthly webinar schedule, in-touch e-newsletter, and various toolkits. The link to the Farmland Tax Incentive Program webinar is available here and on mpac.ca, and I'd encourage you to watch this webinar for more information regarding this program because it was put together in conjunction with Agricor, so you get both sides of it. So every municipality has their own dedicated account management team at MPAC, should your municipality have any questions related to MPAC and our work. Don't ever hesitate to contact me because I'm your local account manager. thank you for allowing me to address council, and does anybody have any questions?
Thank you very much, John, for that. Questions from council? Go ahead, Councillor Ottens.
Yes, thank you, through you, Mayor. Not really a question. We just had a meeting at Roma with the Ag Minister as well, discussing some of the issues we had municipally and personally with the changes when you move a farm, sell a farm, your tax assessment, like what you're rated as would change and how problematic that is, not just for the farmers, but for the municipality as well, and looking for changes in that. So it does sound like you're starting to address that.
And yeah, what happens is anytime there's a change in the ownership of the property, that alerts Agricor that they have to reapply. So when your lawyer goes to change the name on the deed or on the title, you should also contact Agricor to make sure you're still in the program.
But we are working, I don't know if you can hear me, but we are working with the ministry as well. So, yeah, we're trying to continue to improve this process for the property owner experience. So thanks for your sharing that you had the delegation with the minister.
Thank you, Ann. Mr. Kelly?
Sure, through you, Mayor Davidson, and thanks for bringing up Councillor Ottens. Yeah, I think that the delegation to the minister was very timely, and we understand that work is happening in the background. I guess just sharing the feedback from the ministry with you guys as well, which you've probably heard, they're open to continuing to do the work. While the number has come down significantly, the number of write-offs through TIAs, it still is a significant impact on communities such as Mapleton. We did delegate that Mapleton has the second largest proportion of farm assessment in the entire province, so that just emphasizes how big this impact is for us. So our write-offs last year were around $360,000. 73% of that was caused by this specific issue, and I know it's not an MPAC issue. This is a broader systemic issue, but the minister was quite open to conversations continuing with rural municipalities such as us, MPAC, Agricor, and themselves to just kind of continue to advance the work to resolve the problem. We did speak to the challenges for the farmer themselves. It causes a lot of confusion when you buy a farm or inherit a farm. All of a sudden, there's a significant change in taxes. Also, as far as long-term financial planning, those shifts up and down make it difficult for us. But obviously glad to hear and supportive of the work you guys are doing to work towards a solution. So thanks.
Have you realized yet we have one of the smartest CFOs there is in Ontario, if not Canada? Very smart
I
guy.
used to talk to him when he worked in Orangeville.
There you go. So you know all about him then?
Oh, yeah.
Go ahead, Ms. Barron.
Through your worship, so you probably get this question at least a few times a day. So last reassessment was 2016. If I build a house and I have an empty lot next to me, I built it, it's 10 years ago, and if my neighbor now builds a house, the same house could be essentially the same house, but the new house will be considerably higher in property taxes than I have neighbors that I'm paying $1,000, $1,200, $1,500 more than they are. And it seems like the disparity is getting greater and greater and greater. So I guess all that to say, when is the next reassessment? And I know it's probably a loaded question that you don't like to hear, but.
No, but Doug Ford knows the answer to that question, but he hasn't told us yet.
Is there a push? Like, there's got to be a push.
Well, nobody wants it more than we do because our data is 10 years out of date. And when you have a new house, it's also on 2016 values, just backdated. So they're both on the same, it's still apples to apples. Right?
Yeah, as soon as we know, we'll let you know, but we are anxious, as John said, to get the word to do the reassessment. We are keeping our database up to date. We're regularly out collecting data. We're analyzing the market and the sales. And John talked to you a little bit about some of the reports on our website and things that you can, insights that will help you understand the changes since the last assessment update. And so, you know, we're happy to to process the assessment update when it's announced. But the government, I think a couple of years ago, announced there was a full review on assessment and taxation in Ontario. So that's what's holding up, I think, the announcement until they do that full review. But we will be anxious to do that. And I do want to reiterate, John answered it perfectly, but with respect to the comparing of a new home that's built today versus something that's been there before, we do have to backdate what that house would have been worth if it was built in 2016. So there shouldn't be a disparity. Of course, a new home today, if it's bigger and newer, it might have a higher value, just due to, depending on the size, the location, the condition, and things like that. But there shouldn't be a huge discrepancy between a brand new home and some of the homes in your community. But we just want to clarify that we're not valuing the new home on what it would have been worth today. They're all backdated to 2016.
I can understand the frustrations that you folks would have as well with this whole process of waiting. Municipalities, as you know, you work with municipalities, you know the municipalities are wanting this reassessment done. We want to be up to date, just like you want to be up to date, and we look forward to when the Premier and the government decide to finish what they're doing and tell us what we're going to be doing.
There's nothing worse than trying to prove market value with 10-year-old data.
That's right. That's right. Any further questions, comments? I thank all three of you for being here today.
Thank you.
Thank you. I have a resolution moved by Councillor Reid, second by Councillor Martin, that Township of Mapleton Council receive for information a delegation of Municipal Property Assessment Corporation, MPAC, Ann Haynes, John Young, and Kelly Button, regarding the Farm Tax Incentive Program, outlining MPAC's role and highlighting recent changes to the process. All in favor? It's carried. And next we have another delegation, which is Wellington Federation of Agriculture, and we have Janet Harrop with us today. Janet, welcome. And I will say we do have Barclay Knapp in the background as well,
Yes.
just in case Janet needs to, get some extra
Need some
support.
help. Yes. Thank you. Thank you for allowing me to present. My presentation has been circulated and it's up there, so we will just go through my presentation. So a few years ago, the Wellington Federation of Agriculture did a zoning bylaw template study, as well as I think it was maybe about 6 months ago, there was a conversation that happened at this council that was talking about as of right, and specifically in our mind around what that means for agriculture. So I thought taking the two and looking at how they overlap and how they intersect and how we can help agricultural landowners and the municipality at the same time, it just made sense to be able to put them together and come forward and have this conversation. The OFA has, through their Economic Development Department, has a couple staff members that are very well versed at supports for agriculture. So some of the information, this presentation was pulled from there. So next slide. So one of the land use recommendations through this economic development strategic document that OFA has provided is to have clearly identify permitted uses in the agricultural zone, and also around aligning with the provincial planning statement definitions. So I do understand, probably several months ago, you also considered the community planning permitting system and opted to stay with your existing system, which I think seems to be working quite well. And so, again, having clear permitted uses through that process really, it reduces confusion and conflict, and it increases speed at which things can be approved. Next slide. So when we look at the updated definitions of what we can do on agricultural land, the big ones are around agriculture-related uses and as well as the on-farm diversified uses. Obviously, they both have to be on a farm. the ag-related use, really the big component of that is it has to provide services that are provided for farms, farm operations, and that's their primary activity. It provides a benefit for farm owners that are in the area, and the close proximity to those farm operations is definitely a benefit for that business. So I can look to Maple Lane as an example of what would be an agriculture-related use. And the on-farm diversified use, again, located on a farm, but it's secondary to the agricultural use, and it's limited in size. So both of those are quite important because it doesn't mean that they are doing something on the farm that they want to build a store to sell it. It's secondary to the actual primary use of the property. And so we do have things like home occupations, home industries, like if you have a machinery shop that is doing non-agricultural items or fixing trucks or that kind of thing. Agritourism, which we're seeing a significant increase in uptake of agritourism in Wellington County, and some for sure in Mapleton. And we're seeing that uptake because there's a recognition of the economics of agriculture, and people want to be able to be on their farms and have a full-time income potentially. And so they're looking at agritourism uses to be able to stay on their farms and provide a service. So again, having it limited to less than that 2% or up to a hectare doesn't take away from the primary use, and it can't hinder the neighbors and the neighboring use. So we do see it as an opportunity to be able to showcase some of the food that we have in Wellington County and in Mapleton, and also an opportunity for some agricultural education. So we do see a benefit, and an example of this was, and Barclay and I were here several months ago as well. Actually, it's probably about a year ago now, where we did have a surplus farm dwelling severance that the person was running a construction business on, and they used the on-farm diversified use as their criteria, which was not incorrect in the sense that if it was the entire farm, it would have been okay, but the property was 4 acres in size, and so there was no agricultural use of that property. So then it's not agriculture related. So that's where we see how, again, land use policies overlap so much, and why we're bringing this forward, because to have surplus farm dwellings this size to be able to support a house, potentially a small storage shed, water and septic is so important, because it should be a residential lot. It shouldn't be a small farm. So having the on-farm diversified use definitions and clear understanding of what that means is quite important. Next slide. So the development of the as-of-right zoning criteria for a proposed use that's compatible with neighboring agricultural uses to reduce red tape. So again, looking at our zoning template document that we created to really look at the provincial policy statement and aligning some of the definitions. Several of them Mapleton already is using, and through housekeeping amendments have already updated. But to provide the criteria and the definitions already in place, so there's a clear understanding of what's allowed and not allowed. And as we see the official plan at the county hopefully finally getting approved. It's been several years we've been working with the county around some of the agricultural needs throughout the county to be able to get that approved. And when you're updating at a municipal level your bylaws, to be able to have clear understanding, it reduces red tape, it reduces time, again, for the municipality and for the agricultural landowners. Next slide. So again, as of uses, as of right uses, I should say, and so when land is zoned agricultural or agricultural rural, that means that if they comply with all of the provisions within the planning statement. And so as long as they comply with setbacks, lot size, MDS, building heights, like some of the other building provisions, they have a legal right just to move forward with what they're doing. There's not, a building permit could be issued. There's not a need because they now have an on-farm diversified use to look at rezoning that property as commercial. There's not a need to have that on-farm diversified use identified as commercial and then requesting development charges. These things have all happened to our members with zoning amendments that are quite costly and time-consuming and delaying projects. And so, again, having things in place to be able to move forward as an agricultural use within the guidelines is important. So we see, as of right, in agriculture as your standard crop production, raising livestock, having barns, manure storages, grain storages, silos. That's what most people think of as farms. But we're looking, and you have already expanded your definitions to include what is an on-farm diversified use, what is an agriculture-related use, what is a farm retail bed and breakfast, and how does that align with land use. Next slide. So again, the main planning principles, and a lot of these all stem back to economic sustainability for the municipality, but as well as obviously the landowners, and improving the local rural community and local jobs. So again, diversifying on farms allows farmers to stay on their land and diversify their revenue streams. The local agriculture and local produce is a benefit for people that live in the municipality. It's healthier, again, provides jobs and economics. Protecting the agricultural land so that the majority of the land remains agriculture and continues to be farmed. And I didn't realize that Mapleton was the second highest in Ontario. That's very impressive. We know that Mapleton is an agricultural hub for sure, and a huge industry here, but hearing that number was, that's a huge deal. So next slide. So an evolving definition of agriculture is a good thing. So as the world changes and residential definitions and uses change, as we see more multi-use type residential uses, we also want to see initiatives in the rural community to be able to, again, preserve agricultural land as agricultural land, but being able to support agriculture in a way to keep that connection to farms and farming. So that connection is a good thing. So again, so long as the proposals are clear, the land use is clear, and for the economic survivability of many farms. And then again, flexibility. So again, use of as-of-right zoning to have everything, your I's dotted, your T's crossed, so that somebody comes in and wants to do something that it's clear from both sides as to what can happen, what can be done and what can't be done, and at the least amount of time and cost to both the municipality and the landowner. Next slide. No. I didn't miss a slide, did I? Oh, there it is, yeah. Yeah, so again, clarity is good, and we've already spoken to that around the definitions and policies and compatibility between different land uses. We do hear MDS concerns around, and today MDS, when some of these proposals come forward, may make sense and they may comply, but we are seeing, obviously, you see a lot in your building department. We have lots of landowners, agricultural landowners, livestock owners, crop owners that are expanding and growing, and that future need of theirs to be able to put up a barn or a building or manure storage, which of course is the one that on some properties is getting to the point it's almost impossible to be able to build with some of the MDS restrictions. Having that compatibility is so important, so that if that neighboring farm that might comply today wants to in 10 years expand and put that manure storage up, that they can. because that's where our food comes from and your economic engine in this municipality. So the fairness in the property system is also good. I was wishing I could ask a question of the person from MPAC, but I couldn't. So, the fact that it's a 20% reduced rate is always a bit of a bug with me, in the sense that it's like saying that industrial is fortunate to pay twice as what the residential rate. The 25% rate for farmland is the set rate in the provincial planning. So it's not a reduction. That's the rate. And so looking at what the fairness in that tax system is a good thing. And my question would have been, as we see a lot of speculations around land prices in this area, as people are moving out of the GTA, when they do their assessment, and you have a property in 2016 was, say, 500,000, now it's 2 million, what does that do to the assessment? So it will be interesting how they find equity and clear direction around that. So again, recognizing different geographies when you're closer to the GTA and you have access to different systems to move your product, there needs to be a recognition of that. Next slide. So this is the zoning template document that we created through, there was a consultant that was hired by the planning staff at OFA, and we worked with the planner at OFA as well. There's a lot of iterations. We went back and forth on what the document showed, but really what the consultant did was they took the existing planning documents of the 7 municipalities as well as the county and did a comparison, and then we aligned it with the provincial planning statement as to what the most current up-to-date definitions were and what was the best, an equal balance for the municipalities as well as for agriculture. So we did, as I said, that comparison. We have several definitions in this document. And again, as I said, as the official plan is done and you're looking at taking your existing bylaws, adding your housekeeping amendments that you've done over the years, and creating your new set of bylaws with the new official plan. It's meant to be a tool to be able to support updating some of the definitions. Ideally, we'd like to see consistency across the county, but we recognize that this is a tool and it's up to each municipality as to how much of the document they want to use and support. We have seen definitions, and I'll just pull a couple. One of them was electric fencing. So you kind of think an electric fence, pretty straightforward. Well, the definition actually described the output of the electric fence as the voltage that the energy generator requires. So 240 volts. So if you actually, that would be like sticking your finger in a light socket. So what the energy generator needs in terms of power and the ohms, the amperage that the actual unit sends out to the line are totally different. So little things like that we updated to what is actually happening on farms. Things we looked at, what is the difference between a guard dog versus a farm dog versus a guide dog. And the definitions are different in the sense that generally a companion dog, you have to have leashed all the time. You have to have control over them. So control of a farm dog that's there to be able to either herd livestock or protect livestock, you have control over them in a different way. And we've had members that have been almost charged because they had their dog not on leash out on their farms. So, and they may have 3 dogs that are herding animals or protecting animals. They may have 2 or 3 that they're training. They may have a house dog that is their companion dog. So they also you have more than 3 dogs, so you need a kennel license. Well, that doesn't apply in the rural community, right? So those types of things are in this document to be able to kind of, again, support the municipality. And the link to the document is there to be able to use as a resource. Next slide. So other resources, I won't list them. The one I will kind of say is around consideration for roadways, We are seeing more roundabouts, and I realize a majority of them are county roundabouts, but the big thing is around having soft edges going into the roundabout, so you do have some space to be able to maneuver a piece of equipment in there without knocking the tires off the hubs, because that is happening in other municipalities in the county. And again, a wide enough radius to have an up to a 40-foot piece of equipment to be able to maneuver through, which is usually done with a large apron. So, and the others are just for resources. Next slide. Again, I'm not going to go through each of these. We've touched on them. The one that I would say about normal farming practices, I think Mapleton has a really good understanding of what that means. What is a normal practice in agriculture? It's not intended to be a nuisance. It's a normal practice. And being able to clearly explain that when somebody comes complaining, so that it's fine somewhere else but not in my backyard kind of adage. And I don't know that there's a lot of that in this municipality, but there are other municipalities in the county here that's more of a concern. So, and again, ensuring policies do not create barriers for farm growth. Next slide. So again, our contact information, we do have an Outlook email. This OFA email actually is outdated, so I would just kind of, if I get more I think Larry's aware of that the OFA email doesn't work anymore. Our website does work. My email, my cell number is there. Barclay or myself are always available, and I thank you for the opportunity to be able to present.
Thank you, Janet. There's a lot there to unpack, and I'm glad that council had a few weeks to look over all this with all the links and all the documents. There's a lot to unpack there. We do appreciate that, you've, as you said to start, you heard some questions from council, and you guys went back and tried to figure some things out. So I appreciate that, that this dialogue, and then something like this can come out of that dialogue. So thank you so much for that. Questions from council members then? Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It might be a long-winded one because I'm not exactly sure how to get through my notes, but I guess
I see your notes are written around the
It
corners.
is.
Yeah,
It is.
okay,
Kept-
perfect.
kept
Yeah.
going. So, thank you for coming in today. We always enjoy when you come in and talk about ag-related stuff. I guess my question or comment is more around worry with balancing these priorities. When I look at the principles, what is there, 9 of them, 10 of them? The one that jumps out to me the most is Principle 7, which is clarity is good, right? I find that some of the different priorities or the principles are actually almost competing with each other. And what I mean by that is, I didn't grow up, I'm not a farmer. I didn't grow up on a farm. I was raised in farming communities, but in my time here on council in the last 11 and a bit years, we routinely see applications come through and get approved that, kind of make you chuckle a little bit. Like, it's not like they're meeting the planning policies, but like we have full-blown manufacturing facilities happening on our side roads, right? Arguably, they're secondary to the primary use. We've talked about kind of that before in principle, right? Certainly not in revenue, but, and so while there's, the diversifying the revenue streams for the ag community is important, in Mapleton specifically, you're 10, 15 minutes away from arguably a properly zoned area where that business could exist well, right? So I understand the concepts, and then we could, of course, talk about surplus farm dwellings, which, keep me up at night, but they come through and they go, right? We had one last meeting where essentially a vacant lot, brand new house gets built, and then suddenly it's surplus, right? I know the OFA has a stance on surplus farm dwellings, and you don't want to see like subdivisions and strip developments happening in the rural community, but I would argue it's happening routinely. despite the objections of the OFA and WFA, right? So, you know, we've had farmers delegating, or a farmer delegating in here before, kind of speaking about kind of the demise of the farming community, right, with the surplus farm dwellings and residential lots being created, and then difficulties expanding operations and stuff moving forward. You kind of talk about that in here as well, but, you know, all this to say, how do you, as the WFA and the advocacy that I assume your mandate comes from your members or from the OFA, you know, how do you balance those two, those priorities, right? We had folks in here last meeting, right, celebrating them for the award for the farm, right? They've got a diversified use. That one makes a lot of sense to me, right? But we also have a lot of situations where, you know, it's not cut and dried, right? So clarity is good, but for every policy that gets created, there's wiggle room, right? And then our planners are put in difficult situations to really provide a recommendation for council to move on, right? So if you get into that kind of as of right situation, how do you see that playing out long-term, right? Are we going to see a mini mart on the 8th of Peel in 20 years and we just go, what happened, right? Didn't see that coming, or maybe we should have, right? So where would you kind of land on balancing those out? Sorry, that was really long-winded.
No, thank you for the question. And I mean, the surplus farm dwelling severance for comment to go to the county 2 weeks ago, we have been discussing that at the WFA. And, you know, again, the intent of policies and how people try to circumvent them to get around them are quite different. And so, you know, the intent of buying a farm with a house on it and recognizing that that house is surplus to your farm business is quite different than buying a vacant parcel of land, building a house, and then asking for it to be severed. It was never surplus to the farm business when the farm was purchased. So we are just starting to have some conversations around that, but I think your main question is really, I mean, we have some very good policy staff and planners at OFA that they have the ear of at the province. They live and breathe this. If we have something that is a little bit in that gray zone, we'll reach out to them and say, okay, this is the policy in this situation, how should it be applied? And then we move that forward, because it's always, if you move away from policy and you make exceptions, then the next exception will get a bit bigger, and the next exception will get a little bit bigger. So you have to be very clear what your policy is and really stick to those. And, you know, as you say, there's always those gray areas. Sometimes a little bit of wiggle room in the situation actually makes a lot of sense. And so that's where the science of it, or the massaging of it as counselors and as planning staff comes in. But we really try to stick to policy, and that's where we see our role with the local municipalities being really valuable, because we can access that resource at the OFA and then provide some of that feedback. And Mapleton's been great about sharing all the planning documents. We have other municipalities that are not so forthcoming with planning, with sharing planning documents. And so if we can then support some of these, especially the surplus farm dwellings, severance requests, that we can provide comments with the planning staff as it goes to the county. We often don't hear about them until we review the county planning agenda, because we're not on their circulating list, although we've requested to, and we're not. So it really puts the municipality in a really bad position, because you have an opportunity to make comment, and then it comes back to you really to rezone the farmland, which at that point, you really don't have a choice but to say yes. So trying to have everybody kind of stay in their lane, but in the same time, do what's right to be able to keep the lots as small as possible and maintain as much agricultural land as possible.
Thank you very much for that answer and question. The long drawn-out question. Forgive for that. Anything further? Thank you so much, Janet.
Thank you very much.
Barclay. I have here a resolution moved by Councilor Reed, second by Councilor Martin. The Township of Mapleton Council receive for information delegation of Wellington Federation of Agriculture, Janet Harrop, the past president, including a presentation supporting agriculture in Mapleton, the zoning template for agriculture in Wellington County, and that Township of Mapleton Council direct the plant manager of planning and development to review the information and report back to council. Any questions on that resolution? All in favor? It's carried. Moving on to item number 9, which is environmental sustainability, and we're talking about the Drayton Flood Mitigation Project. Mr. Martin Tamlin.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So with this report, the main recommendation is to support an application to the Cooperators Resilience Acceleration Lab. That application was attached, and also an opportunity to kind of update and next steps. So at the last council meeting, the need for flood mitigation in Drayton was affirmed by council. It was put on the 10-year budget books on the condition of finding funding, and then staff were asked to explore funding and partnership opportunities with that. As has been through FCM, as has been gaps as well identified in some of the funding for especially climate adaptation and big infrastructure projects. We found that this application was very well aligned with where we were. Since that affirmation of need from the last meeting, maybe I'll go through some of the steps that we have, because we were had funding confirmed by the Climate Ready Infrastructure Services. So in the report that came to council, the next step was to really have a closer look at the options for a dike extension and other kind of mitigation measures that we could employ in Drayton. And so through this offering, through Climate Ready Infrastructure Services, we've secured funding to conduct that study. And at the moment, we're just securing a vendor, which hopefully might be Montrose, that actually did the initial study and have the data sat with them and the knowledge of the community. Now, some of the next steps, which really kind of then, that will provide an options analysis of really what our preferred options will go, and then from there, then we can go into further studies and community input and all those. So those next steps are kind of, the cost can be covered by the Resilience Lab as well, and also provide kind of professional support in looking what kind of funding models would support those kind of projects. So at this stage, I said we're ready to go to the next stage of really getting some confirmed details of our options. And then I think with the alignment that we have, fingers crossed, I think we have a good fit moving forward with this next stage of a project. If open to any questions.
Resolution moved by Councilor Reed, second by Councilor Martin, that Township of Mapleton Council receive for information Environmental Sustainability Report ES2 2026-01, and that council receive for information the application to cooperators with reference to call for proposals, Canadian Climate Resilience Infrastructure Projects, and further that council supports the application to the Cooperators Resilience Acceleration Lab as presented. Questions then for Mr. Tamlin? Councilor Ottens?
Thank you, through you, Mayor. Yeah, this is really important. Nobody wants to see the homes and businesses there flood again. We're very early on in this project, but a main concern I still always have, and I assume the plan is sort of drawn out in the grant application already. If a large berm is built there, like how does that affect the access to that area of the community? Like, there's a lot of community-based facilities there, and blocking it off with a giant berm is a huge problem that we need to put in. So how do we balance that, and is that included? Are there parts of that included in the plan? It's early now, and I realize that, but this is where something like that would be addressed.
Mr. Tamlin?
Yeah, Thank you, Councillor Ottens, through you, Mayor. Yeah, so the next day is we'll call it an options analysis. So in the 80s, when there was actually studies, when there was some alternative dike alignments mapped out, which actually followed the embankment of the river further upstream, or even kind of cut further on the far end of the agricultural fields. There is options. There's also kind of erosion that's happening, that's filling in those channels, which is affecting the capacity to carry all this water during big rain events as well. So to understand, the mechanics and the impacts upstream of all these different scenarios, and also taking a very close financial look at those different scenarios as well, which is a really big consideration. But there's also kind of temporary barriers to be considered, or mechanical barriers. There's all sorts of things that would allow access, maybe, until there's a warning that comes forth. But this report will allow all those options to be put on the table then for the community and for council to discuss.
Other questions? All in favor? It's carried. Next up is item 9.2, which is Moorfield Optimus Outdoor LED Sign Partnership. Jamie?
Thank you, Mayor Davison and Council. I just wanted to start by telling you how much I enjoy seeing the staff recognition. We had a couple equipment operators that had 5-year service awards that weren't able to make it tonight. Cliff McLean and Josh Parent were not able to make it. We did push their start time back to 3:30, so they got pretty early start. So they're probably having a nap right now. So I just want to mention their names for their 5-year service. So, and then again for staff, I just like to thank staff, Jim Gross and Amy Gross for the meetings and helping put this all together. It's been a pretty good experience with the Optimist Club in Moorfield in creating this sign at McGivern and Ball, the entrance, basically the road entrance into the Maryborough Community Center. So we've had a few meetings, and it's all outlined in my report. They're financially basically funding almost the entire project. We're going to do some in-kind donations with future paying for the hydro to run the sign, which won't be a lot. We're going to prep the site. We have the equipment. We're going to work with the Horticultural Society and tidy up their flower bed there. We got to get the tulip bulbs out, and I'm not sure if anybody's had a chance to look at the entrance we did last year with Horticultural. So we're gonna mimic that for the flower bed around the sign. So the measurement's not in there, but the sign's about 96 inches tall, and the blocks I think are around 18 inches. So there'll be about 72 inches of sign showing. We've incorporated the Optimus portion of it, and then also the township portion, split it up to make it a little bit more balanced on the sign. And yeah, so it's a great project, and I hope council supports it, and we can move forward and tidy up that entire corner.
Thank you. The resolution is moved by Councillor Woodham, second by Councillor Ottens. The Township Mapleton Council received for information report PW 2026-01 regarding proposed outdoor LED sign partnership between the Township of Mapleton and Moorfield Optimist Club, and that council authorized the mayor and clerk to execute an agreement between both parties to advance these works, and further, council endorse the in-kind donation of township staff and resources to ensure a successful project delivery. Questions then to Mr. Morgan? Councilor Martin?
Not a question, Mr. Mayor, just a comment. I think it's another great example.
Great project.
Of a good partnership that Moorfield Optimist Group just keeps pumping out projects and doing good things. So thanks for our TAR staff for sitting down and making this happen for them. So I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, we're very fortunate in Mapleton to have so many great groups that want to work with the township and do work within the township. And we see that over and over again every year. And we're thankful for all of them. And thanks for the staff for the work with Moorfield Optimists. I think it's going to be a great addition to that part of the community. All in favor? That's carried. We have a number of items there. Number 12 for council's information. Mr. Clerk has slacked a little bit. He's only got 11 there this week. Anybody wish to speak to any of these 11? Moving on to number 13 then. Any notices of motion? 15, other business. All right. 16.1, moved by Councilor Otten, second by Councilor Woodham, that Township of Mapleton Council move into a closed session to consider the following subject matter: litigation or potential litigation affecting municipality or local board. All in favor? That's carried. We'll have a 10-minute recess.